Did you know the US Department of Energy reduced power outage restoration time by about 50% by applying lessons from leaves? You're listening to Wild Engineers, decoding nature's intelligent designs in your coffee break. Let's dive in. Small electrical faults can begin quietly, a local disruption, a damaged line, a brief abnormal condition. Yet, when that electricity only has one pathway to travel through, what seemed small can quickly escalate into a much larger outage. Hi, I'm Melanie Farmer, and today's question is, how does nature distribute energy reliably during disturbances? Imagine a system that keeps supplying flow even when one route is cut, because the network can redirect power along a multitude of pathways. This is where leaves come in. At a glance, leaf veins look neatly branched, but look closely and we find water and nutrients moving through several connected routes at once. A critical and efficient adaptation, because if one vein is damaged, surrounding pathways can continue transport and protect the wider leaf, and ultimately the tree it is a part of, from major loss of function. The mechanism includes load distribution across the network rather than concentrated along one central conduit. The system is locally tuned and responsive, with nearby pathways offering transport when damage occurs. Rerouting can happen constantly with minimal effort or communication. Fungal mycelial networks show a similar pattern, reallocating resources toward demand and away from damaged zones. This approach was applied by the US Department of Energy on what can be described as self-healing electrical networks using fault location, isolation, and service restoration, or FLISR. FLISR uses sensors and controls to detect abnormal conditions quickly. Automatic isolation of the damaged section, rerouting through alternative pathways, and that same intelligence distributed across the network. What impact has this approach delivered? Well, the US Department of Energy evaluated the 2012 outage that impacted much of the Midwest and Tennessee, affecting about half of their customers. Because of investments in these smart switches and meters, the outage duration for all affected customers decreased by about 50%. In fact, they estimate 36 million fewer customers of interruption with the new solution. We started by asking, how does nature distribute energy reliably during disturbances? Nature's strategy in this example is to build in diversity and redundancy, rerouting energy along multiple pathways, in the case of the humble leaf. The mechanism includes multiple alternate pathways, diversely distributed options in play at the same time to share load, locally responsive to feedback loops, and a decentralized configuration. Everything is not required to travel through some central hub. So, if you're designing energy networks, switchboard logic, campus microgrids, or some other distribution system, is there a way to increase redundancy, variation, and decentralized control to keep the system functioning if one part fails? That's wild engineering. Thanks for listening. Stay wild and see you next time. That's it for this episode of Wild Engineers. If you're inspired to apply nature's intelligence in your own work, check the show notes for more detail. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share and help us redesign our world inspired by nature.